For decades, the narrative surrounding Princess Diana's tragic death in 1997 has been shaped by the public, the media, and the royal family. But behind the grand processions and national mourning lies a story far more complex and painful, one that has slowly emerged through the voice of her younger brother, Charles Spencer. As time passed, Spencer chose to break his silence, revealing behind-the-scenes decisions, overlooked pain, and a systematic failure that impacted not only Diana's final moments, but the childhoods of her sons, Prince William and Prince Harry. On September 6, 1997, the world collectively paused to grieve. Over 2.5 billion people watched as Princess Diana's funeral unfolded, making it one of the most viewed events in history. The streets of London overflowed with mourners holding flowers, crying openly, and waving goodbye to the woman they had come to know as the People's Princess. But amidst this public mourning, an image emerged that would haunt a generation. Two young boys, William, 15, and Harry, 12, walking behind their mother's coffin under the watchful eye of global cameras. This image, heartbreaking and iconic, was not born out of the boys' free will. According to Charles Spencer, their uncle, the plan to make the princes walk behind Diana's casket came from within the royal institution. Spencer, deeply opposed to the idea, fought vehemently against it. He insisted it was cruel, unnatural, and emotionally damaging to place children in such a spotlight at the most vulnerable moment of their lives. Spencer recalls being informed of the decision during a funeral planning conversation with a palace courtier. Upon hearing the plan, he responded with outrage. She would never have wanted them to do this. Yet despite his opposition, he was told it had already been decided. The final blow came when he was told the boys themselves had agreed to participate, a statement Spencer later discovered was untrue. Years afterward, Prince Harry confirmed that they were not given a real choice. At 12, he had no power to refuse and was simply told what to do. Spencer, believing he was respecting their wishes, stepped back. In truth, he had been misled, and the burden placed on William and Harry would become a defining moment in their psychological development, a trauma Harry later called beyond unnatural. While the funeral was filled with traditional elements and royal protocol, it also held a jarring and emotional moment that pierced through the formality. Charles Spencer's eulogy. Standing inside Westminster Abbey in front of the Queen, Prince Charles, and the entire world, Spencer chose not to simply mourn his sister. He chose to fight for her legacy. His speech was clear, impassioned, and deeply critical. He described Diana as the most hunted person of the modern age and directly criticized the media and institutions that had failed to protect her. Most notably, he took a sharp jab at the royal family when he promised that Diana's sons would be protected and guided by her blood family, not just the Windsors. This statement was more than sentimental. It was a symbolic rejection of the monarchy's role in Diana's life and death. The reaction was unprecedented. Applause erupted within the abbey, something never heard of during a royal funeral. The public heard his message loud and clear. Diana had been mistreated, and her brother was not going to let her be buried in silence. Yet Spencer later admitted that his promise, though heartfelt, was nearly impossible to fulfill. William and Harry were too enmeshed in the royal system for him to truly influence their futures. His role would remain limited, while the monarchy continued to shape their lives. The true chaos began not with the funeral, but with the night Diana died. August 31st, 1997. In a tunnel in Paris, while attempting to escape paparazzi, the car carrying Diana and her companion Dodi Fayed crashed at high speed. The impact was devastating. Diana was critically injured and died a few hours later. Charles Spencer, asleep in South Africa at the time, was awakened by a phone call informing him of an accident. Initially told Diana had been hurt, he hoped for her recovery. But the second call shattered that hope. She hadn't survived. The loss was devastating, but Spencer's pain was coupled with fury. He blamed the paparazzi, who had hunted his sister for years, for the crash. And he believed the royal family shared in that responsibility, not for chasing her, but for failing to protect her from it. As the public cried and mourned, something troubling emerged from the royal household: silence. No statements were made for days, no flags lowered, no appearances in London. The Queen and Prince Charles remained at Balmoral Castle in Scotland with William and Harry, away from the public eye. The lack of visible mourning sparked outrage. Headlines accused the monarchy of emotional indifference. "Where are you?" cried the tabloids. "Your people are grieving." Eventually, 5 days later, the Queen addressed the nation. In a televised broadcast, she praised Diana as a devoted mother and acknowledged the public grief. But for many, the speech came too late. The damage to the monarchy's image had already been done. The contrast between Diana's warmth and the cold reaction of the royal establishment had never felt starker. At Balmoral, William and Harry were shielded from the media, but not from pain. Prince Charles had to break the news to them. Their mother was gone. The last time they had spoken with her was a day earlier, during a brief, casual phone call. They never had the chance to say goodbye. Harry later admitted that his grief was met with a strange silence within the palace. No one really talked about Diana. There were no deep conversations or emotional guidance, just a void. He recalled feeling numb and confused, unable to process what had happened or how to express his feelings. The walk behind Diana's coffin only added to the emotional suppression, something both brothers would struggle with well into adulthood. Charles Spencer's fury toward the royal family did not end with the funeral. Over the years, he became increasingly vocal about how Diana was treated, both in life and in death. In interviews, he recounted how she often called him in tears, feeling isolated, unheard, and mistreated. He claimed the royal family distanced themselves from her, even after her divorce, offering her no real protection from the relentless media. He was especially critical of how the institution used her when it suited their image, only to cast her aside when she became inconvenient. She didn't need a royal title to continue to generate her particular brand of magic, he once said, a reminder that Diana's influence came from her humanity, not her crown. This sentiment was reinforced in his eulogy, which publicly challenged the notion that Diana's value was tied to her royal position. By declaring that she would be remembered for her heart and courage, not her title, Spencer carved a new narrative, one where Diana belonged to the people, not the palace. While Spencer could not remove William and Harry from the system, one of them would eventually find a way out. Prince Harry, deeply affected by his mother's death and the years that followed, grew increasingly disillusioned with royal life. He saw the same patterns emerge when his wife, Meghan Markle, became a target of relentless media scrutiny and internal criticism. To Harry, it was all too familiar. History was repeating itself. In 2020, Harry made the decision to step away from the royal family, move to the United States, and forge a new path. This was no longer just personal grief. It was a refusal to allow the cycle of trauma to continue. In interviews, he spoke of the emotional toll, recalling the flashbacks triggered by paparazzi, the fear of losing Meghan like he lost Diana, and the need to protect his family. Spencer never directly commented on Harry's departure, but his past statements made it clear that he understood. Spencer had fought for his sister. Now Harry was fighting for his wife and his own mental health. In doing so, Harry not only honored Diana's memory, he extended her legacy of courage and independence. The story of Diana's death and the subsequent actions of her brother and her youngest son reveals much more than just personal grief. It exposes a deep institutional failure, a disconnect between the monarchy and the public, and the human cost of tradition and protocol. Charles Spencer's revelations, his eulogy, and his ongoing criticism have served as a counter-narrative to the polished royal version of events. His pain, honesty, and refusal to stay silent helped bring truth to light. Meanwhile, Harry's eventual decision to leave the institution altogether underscores how trauma, when left unacknowledged, does not fade. It multiplies. Diana's story is not just one of tragedy. It is one of legacy, rebellion, and the enduring power of truth, no matter how painful. And through the voices of those who loved her most, her real story continues to echo around the world, challenging the very institutions that once tried to silence her.